Hi friends, it's Michelle coming to you from Michigan. Today, I wanted to talk about some knitting with you. It's 2021. I think this is my first podcast of 2021. And it's a doozy, huh? I don't even know where to start. Let's not talk about it because I'm not an expert in any of that. And I can tell you lots of things about my feelings and my thoughts. But, so I'm Michelle from Michigan. You can find me on Instagram at Quimby Cottage, and you can find me on Ravelry as MK Hansen. I want to talk to you about some knitting. So first, I'm wearing my Branches and Brambles sweater by Carrie Bostic Hogue. I love this. I made mine A-line because, number one, I'm the boss of my knitting, and number two, now that I'm in my 40s, I find that I enjoy a shape that looks more like this than I do a shape that looks like this, or even, which I never had that shape anyway to begin with. So I did add a few stitches to the side to make it more A-line, and if you're interested, you can check out in the description box. I always link my project. I'm pretty good about keeping my Ravelry updated, so you can always find something that I talked about in my Ravelry page, and I always link it in the description box below. So there's a little arrow, I think like right here, little kind of triangle thing, and you can click on that, and then you'll see all the links that I always put them there for you in case I talk about something and you want to know more about it. So that's what I'm wearing. I really like this. There's an option to embroider some little like buds, little flowers and decorations on this, and I have yarn to do that. I just didn't, and since I haven't, I haven't. I love this sweater. It was the first yoke sweater that I ever knit, and I discovered that someone like me who has fairly slopey shoulders, it doesn't necessarily look like it in this with the way I'm wearing. Like what I'm wearing today doesn't necessarily emphasize this, but the truth is my shoulder slopes. And I always joke that I wish there was like a peg right here so I could like hang a bag on it because bags don't stay on my shoulders. My shoulders are narrower than my hips also. So this style of sweater hangs nicely on my shoulders. I always admire those ladies who have those kind of square shoulders and everything just hangs beautifully off of that. That's not me. We all get what we get, and we can't get upset about it. So I do want to make another of these, maybe in a more sturdy yarn, like maybe a Brooklyn tweed, which I think this was made in Loft initially. I think that's what the pattern calls for. Or one of those quince yarns, I'm not sure. Ignore everything I just said. I always want to make another one of these. This is made in, I made this in the Fiber Company Road to China Light, which is a lovely yarn. It does have a little bit of alpaca in it, which I'm allergic to, so I have to wear a shirt underneath. And then it's a pandemic, so I get up and get dressed every day, but I just wear sports bras because why not? So sorry if this is distracting to you. It's for my comfort, which, anyway, let's move on. So that's what I'm wearing today. I like it. Give it a thumbs up, and I might like to reknit it. So there's that. Let's talk about what I finished. First, right after New Year's, or maybe around New Year's, I had a little obsession with the tiny things, as you know, sometimes I have. So I made a couple more of those tiny sweaters, and I already gifted some of them away. So this is the last one I have. But I felt pretty strongly like it needed tiny bits. Look at. So here's what I did. The bottom of this I think is 30 stitches maybe. And this was kind of I can't tell you exactly the pattern that I used for this because I had started making them and I was trying a couple different patterns, and in the end I just sort of started doing it to my own taste. So that's what this is. Most of these are basically the same. So I'll just link one that I used below, but it's probably not exactly the one I did with this, but once you start knitting a couple, you just start going with it. So what I did for the pants, how cute is this? Like, look at that. So cute, right? So what I did and this is the only pair I made, but I'm definitely going to have to do more of these. I'll write it up for you. what I did was the bottom of this is 30, I think, stitches. And so I cast on 30 here and I did a 1x1 rib all the way around. And then I just knit down until it looked about right. I left half of them on a piece of string. Actually, it's not true. I use those big safety pins, the stitch savers that are big safety pins. I just use those because they're easy. And then I knit this one until it looked right. Then I just picked up here and I did 12 rows and 1x1 bottom, a 1x1 ribbing at the bottom and cast off. But aren't they so cute? So I didn't use a pattern for this. I just sort of eyeballed it, but right? How cute is that? So this is actually going to be a gift for a friend. I have a special person in mind who will get this, but isn't that exciting? So I would like to do a couple more of these, but I used up all my energy for tiny knitting. But before I did, I made these tiny hats. The pattern is called Teeny Tiny Hat by Erica Lehner, Lehner. And I made several. And then once I got going, I started adjusting the pattern a little bit. But like, seriously. Okay, wait. I'll do them all so you can see. These are going to be little ornaments, I think. I'm pretty sure. And there's one more in here. Hold on. Let's see. So, oh, I'll put one on my thumb too. Oh my gosh, how cute is this? So I made a few of these. I already gave a couple away, but look at them. Aren't they cute? Like, So I think that they all need the pom-pom, but I kind of don't like how the pom-pom turned out. I think the fabric is too short. The pattern calls for you to do it around a fork. And I think that it's too, like, the pom-pom just doesn't look that great. But I think the secret might be, instead of using yarn when you tie it off, is maybe to use thread. So I think next time I'll try either some sewing thread or maybe some embroidery thread. And I think that might fluff up the pom-poms a little bit because they sort of want to separate where that line is there. But they're just little ornaments, and I think they're so cute. And I had a lot of fun with these. These were pretty addictive. And I made one of these, I think it took about 40 minutes maybe to make one. So don't count my knitting, but it was fun. So I keep them in this little box that had macaroons in them at the suggestion of my friend, Heather. Look at how cute is this little box. And then inside is all my little tiny knitting. So I want to fill this up, right? And if I work on it a little bit every month, I might have a pretty good stash of Christmas things come Christmas, which would be really great. So ding, check. Another thing I finished was this. Okay, confession. Obsessed with Hamilton, the musical. I have seen it, Disney Plus, thank the Lord for Disney Plus. I have seen it, I don't know how many times, probably a dozen, and it is literally on repeat all the time. My kids and my husband swear that they can hear it playing even when I don't have it playing. It's like, and to be honest, same, right? I feel like it's going through my head all the time also. I'm obsessed with it. I love the music. It's very emotional. It speaks to all the parts of me, the history, the costume. Like, I can't get enough of it. I've obsessed about it. I've done a ton of research on it. I read the Lin-Manuel book about the making of Hamilton. I graduated from high school in 1992. And I lived in a city. So I totally grew up on the Beastie Boys and Biggie Smalls and LL Cool J and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm into it. Anyway, I also read a book about Eliza Hamilton. It's a biography of her. And what's really interesting is the Reynolds pamphlet that Hamilton talks about in the play, and that we all have read about in our history books, talks about how Hamilton admitted to having this salacious affair, and he was being accused of speculation. And just to be clear, the speculation that he was being accused of is sort of along the lines of insider trading, because he was the Treasury Secretary at the time. So that would have been at the time considered treasonous. This book by this book about Eliza Hamilton, the author suggests the other side of that story. Basically what she says is, yep, he was speculating, and here's why. And she has all of these historical documents and letters and other proofs, newspaper articles and things like that, that tell the other side of the story. Well, at the end, in the footnotes, she says basically all this information is out there. It's all historical, it's all there. But historians always choose to err on the side of the Hamilton story, and they don't look at the same story from the Maria Reynolds angle, who was the prostitute, right? It's really fascinating. We can go into it in more detail if you're interested in this. I don't really want to commandeer all this and turn into something else, but just all I want to say is talk about the Me Too movement, right? So I'll link that book below here because I found it to be absolutely fascinating. It was well written. It read sort of like a novel, and I really liked it. I have a new respect for Alexander Hamilton, for his wife, for their situation, for the history of the country and how it's all going. So that's all very interesting. Anyway, to all that, my dearest friend has a young son who discovered Hamilton over the Christmas break and is obsessed with it, listens to it all the time. And, you know, he and I have a special bond. So I decided to make him this Hamilton hat. So it has all the song titles in it. So here's, you know, Rise Up. It says Helpless. Burn is here, which is, you know, the famous song. The numbers for the battle of the duel. 10 paces underneath. The year, the names of the songs, the year's there. Oops. One Last Time, which is so beautiful. It's about, I think One Last Time is beautiful, especially now when he talks about leaving. This is the song that George Washington sings when he talks about leaving the office elegantly. Sorry, I had a moment of silence for contemplation there. Talk less, smile more. And then the top is decreases into a star, which is great. So this pattern is by Emily, I forget her last name, but it's a free pattern on Ravelry, although she does offer you an opportunity to give her a donation. It is a wonderful hat. Can I just show you? Sorry, in my head. Inside the brim, it's a folded brim, it says Hamilton 4 times inside. So this is knit on 2s, the outside's knit on 3s. Yes, I caught my floats. It was a little bit slow going, but to be honest, watching it develop was very potato chippy. Like, it was very satisfying to see another section below, a section below. When you go up here, you're doing a lot of decreases and also doing color work. And I will say it was a little challenging for me. And some of these floats were a little bit loose. I would definitely snug them up if you're going to do this. You can't really be tight enough when you're moving needles and stuff like that around this because you're also doing the decreases. And so it looked a little bit sloppy. What I did was on the inside, I went back with my crochet hook and snugged. I just kind of pulled until what was happening is you could see, and like here's a tiny one right here. Do you see that little like peak? So there were a couple of those in there. So what I did was I pulled kind of hard and I ended up with these sort of long loops on the back. And then what I did was I took my crochet hook and I just zipped them up. So here's one that I did. And then I anchored it inside with this color. And I had to do that in a couple of places. So there was one, and then here's 2 more places where I had to anchor it up. Because the knitting kind of kept me from just doing it all at once. That knitting sort of anchored it a little bit. But I didn't want those loose floats in the top either. You know, it's a hat, and for a young boy who's 7th grade, so what is that, 12? So I wanted to make sure that this was useful for him. I mean, I can wear it. I have a big ponytail in. Like, I can wear it, but he's a small boy, and so I didn't want to stretch it. So I blocked it on my little head here. And I didn't do a wet block. I just steamed it a little bit, which I thought was fine for me. When you're a fan of something, being able to bring it out into something, you know, being able to stretch that fandom into your knitting too. Just warms up your little heart, doesn't it? So I really recommend this, but it was kind of slow going and a little bit tedious. I will tell you, I also want to talk about the yarn. Can I talk about the yarn that I selected? I have been wanting to use Hudson and West. It's a new yarn to me, and I have been seeing it around. It's a US made yarn, and it's 70% American wool and then 30% Corriedale. And I had been eager to try it. They have a fingering weight called Weld, which I tried for this, and it's really squishy, and it's toothy without being crunchy, if you know what I mean. So I really liked knitting with it. It was really, really satisfying. I would definitely like it in a garment. I mean, I would use it for anything, even if it wasn't color work, but it was especially good, I think, for color work because it feels really squishy and it feels nice and it's soft. It's not merino soft, but it's not as crunchy as like Loft, Brooklyn Tweed. But I love that yarn too, and I wear that close to skin. So I have no problem with that. And I'm sensitive, as I told you, like to alpaca and things like that. Sometimes a crunchy wool will also give me a rash or something. That's probably too much information for you. So I am sensitive in some ways to some of these wools, but I loved this. So it's kind of pricey, to be honest. It's around the price of Brooklyn Tweed because the yarn is sold in 50 gram skeins, and they were each around $14. So it's definitely an investment to do, but I did really like it, and I was glad to try it out on this. It does run a little thick and thin in some places. I don't know if you can see, even like right here is thick, and then it kind of thins out a little bit even just in that loop. It doesn't show up very well on the camera. There's a few places where it was a little bit thin, but I still think it was great, and it seemed to bloom fine. Let's see if there's any in this. No. Anyway, I really liked it, so if you wanted to try it, that would be great. The other great thing about this hat is that I could do another one in reverse. I weighed these two together. I didn't weigh them separately, but I weighed them together, and that's 55 grams. So together these weighed 100, so that means the hat only weighs about 45 grams, probably, assuming that the skeins were the right weight. I didn't weigh them Sometimes I find that a yarn company will go over a little bit, over 50, but I think it would be pretty easy to stretch these. And if you really wanted to, you could, if you thought you were running out of yarn, when you got up to the top, you could make that star a different color if you were worried about it. But anyway, there's enough yarn to make another one. I don't think I will make another one. It's kind of a really specific hat, and I don't need a hat this weight. It's not something I would use. But, sorry. I really liked this. I might use it to swatch up a garment, but that unfortunately is not in the budget at the moment. Or maybe I'll make tiny sweaters or something with it. But this is really nice yarn. I really recommend it, Hudson and West. So this is the fingering weight version called Weld. I haven't tried any of the others. There's one called Forge which is worsted or Aran, and I would like to try a sweater in that. One more thing that I finished, I took a class at TATTER Blue Library. It was an online Zoom class given by Carolyn Bloom of Bloom Handmade. We learned this Sashiko mending, which I really enjoyed a lot. It's really satisfying. This is just an end that didn't get tucked all the way. So we made the swatch, and then she showed us how to do this, and it's actually really simple. You just artfully, there's a special mathematical way. I don't want to give away the secret sauce because she does have a pattern on Ravelry for it. She gave us a work, like a packet, which I think is included in the pattern. And we got that from the class. She showed us how to artfully make these dash stitches going this way. And then you do a similar system going this way. And then this pattern just emerges. And isn't it magic? So for the class, we did the swatch, but the pattern is actually a headband. And I am eagerly going to do that. So she has us using DK weight. I'm definitely going to make the headband. I might make some adjustments to it already. I noticed that she has you block it on the needles because you adjust the headband to fit you afterwards. But if you're making it for somebody else, I'm not sure. And I've used a headband pattern before where you use a hair rubber band in the back. So let's imagine this is the headband here. So I rolled it so it kind of would look like a headband. You take a hairband and you sew it here and here, and then it, stretches. But of course you have to make sure that this is within a stretchable limit for you, right? So anyway, I think I'm going to try that, but I haven't done it yet. So that's next. That's, future imaginary knitting. But I did love knitting this swatch. Isn't it just great? And you can use the same technique if you're going to mend your jeans or something else like that too. But it's just very fascinating to do it on the knitting. The other thing I was thinking about with this technique is if you had a sweater in your closet that you were sort of tired of, maybe in the beginning when you first started knitting, you knitted and then just the backside is kind of cool too, right? I wove in my ends and I wasn't careful how I did that. I just kind of tucked them in there. So it did obviously adjust the pattern a little bit, like you can see, but I still think that looks pretty cool. What I was going to say is if you have a sweater in your closet, like let's say you did a basic sweater and maybe you were tired of it or you wanted to jazz it up a little bit, this technique would be a great thing to do. And she shows lots of different kinds of embroidery that you can do that would really jazz it up. So if you're looking for some inspiration of maybe jazzing up an old sweater and making it like new again, it's sort of like that. Reminds me a little bit of that, old-fashioned way of doing things where you bought one dress and then you changed it a little bit with ribbons and trims and things like that to update it. And you could do the same thing with your sweaters in this embroidery technique. So I can't think off the top of my head of a sweater that I'd like to try it on. Although she also shows you how to do it. She talks about how to do it on a store-bought sweater, which I think is really, also fascinating. I don't have a lot of store-bought sweaters. I think I just have one cardigan at this point, and it's really fine gauge, so I don't think I would do that. But she talks about how to kind of do that, and she gives some examples. And she also has a pattern for a cowl, which shows some kind of different things. And I just thought it was really, the class was good for me because it piqued that part of my brain that likes to learn. It scratches that itch, and it was fun. It was fun to learn something new, and I really love this. Now, here's the crazy part. Sometimes I forget to take my crazy pills, right? I like the way this feels. This is the Barocco Ultra Wool. It's a machine washable yarn, and it was left over from a baby gift or something. And then this was some leftover cashmere that I used on the inside of Mr. Hansen's hat. So it looked the same thickness. It wasn't labeled. And I picked it up because I thought I knew what it was. And I did know that it was the cashmere, but I didn't realize what the weight of the yarn was. The weight of this gray yarn is thinner than the white rather. And so this gray yarn was the vertical, and it kind of wanted to get stuck in there. So I had to do it a little bit looser. I would recommend definitely using both weights that are the same, although you can get a different effect. If you want to zhuzh with it, that's up to you. I don't know what I'm talking about. The point is, I really enjoyed this, and I love the way that this swatch feels, and this is the crazy part, I sort of want to make a blanket, and I have never made a blanket. I've never made a blanket. I've never knitted a blanket. Because at this point in my life, there's no one I love enough to make one, including myself, right? But I love how this feels. So I don't know if that's in my future or not. But again, Bloom Handmade, I loved it. Oh, just let's admire it one more time. We can close up. Isn't it wonderful? Okay, so that's that. So those are all the things I finished. Now I am working on Sarita's sweater in my new fabric bucket. It's like a bowl, but it's sort of a bucket. But I love it. You can see I'm carrying it around everywhere. I am making the Felix Pullover for Sarita Hansen. And here, you know, I am. I have gone all the way down to the bottom, and I am on sleeve number 1, and I knitted a little bit in bed, so I have to get a couple more of these to mark my decreases. This sweater is easy. I recommend it. I think you'll love it. It would probably go really fast if you were knitting it. The reason it's taking me so long, I started it in November, I think. The reason it's taking me so long is because I first had to do the math because I wanted to add bust darts, which I did. Then my daughter tried it on and decided that she wanted waist shaping after I had already knit quite a bit down. So I ripped it back, did the math, added the waist shaping. Then I realized that she had a sweatshirt type shirt that fits her in a nice way. And so I said, oh, can you bring that down and we'll compare them. We'll lay them both on top and just see to make sure it fits, right? The waist shaping. I think I have a picture of it, which I'll insert here. Looked a little wonky, but it didn't look so bad on her. But when she saw what it looked like laying on top of the sweater that she already has that she liked, she decided she didn't want the waist shaping. So I ripped it all back and knit it again. But I told her, if it has to be ripped back again, the next time I knit it, I'm knitting it in my size. So I think this is going to be the last time. So I just have to knit, you know, a sleeve and a half, and then I'll be done with this. And I'm looking forward to it. I have to wind the next ball of yarn. I only have this much left, and I ended up, because I added all that bust shaping, the pattern, I added 4 inches to the front. Let's not talk about it. But I added 4 inches to the front because of bust shaping. And I had bought an additional skein of yarn that I wasn't sure I was going to need, and I do, so that's fine. I also, when my daughter was running errands the other day, I asked her to stop by and pick up another insurance ball. So I have plenty of yarn, no worries, but I'll be able to finish that soon. So I have to wind this, which is on my to-do list today. And then I have no socks on the needles, no socks. So I got one started. That's not true. I put some yarn in my sock bag so that I would be ready if we were running out, like in the car or something like that. I like to always have knitting because, well, it gives me patience. So I just threw a bunch of yarn in there, figuring I could definitely make a sock out of it. So these socks, this is the Christmas West Yorkshire spinner yarn that I used last year for my socks. And I did heels and toes in this teal color. And then this is another sock yarn that I thought it sort of looks Christmas to me, but it also sort of looks watermelonish. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do something with the two of these, because I'm definitely going to have to do heels and toes and something else. And to make it the length that I normally like, I might have to supplement with maybe a couple of rows of this every few rows. But then I realized that I've knit a lot of scrappy socks lately, and maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I just want something easy and fun. And to be honest, it's Michigan, and there's a lot of clouds these days, and not to mention other things. So I think I might do this. This is a Vesper sock yarn self-striping, and I thought I would do Sarita Hansen chose this, so yes, there would be 2 things on the needles for Sarita. But Sarita chose this yarn, and I thought maybe I would do pink cuffs and heels and toes for her. So I think I might wind this too, since I'm going to be getting the winder out anyway. And the other scrap yarn socks, I love knitting scrap yarn socks, but let's face it, I think my last definitely 3 pairs of socks were all scraps, which is great, but it's okay to dig into your stash too. Okay, I forgot to tell you that I finished one more thing. I did some sample knitting for Summerly Knits. I don't know if you all know her, but she is a fantastic sock designer. Her feed on Instagram is really bright and cheerful, so if you need a little bit of a vacation but can't afford it, don't have the time, definitely look through her feed. It's bright and cheerful, and she also has a podcast, and she's super cute. I did a little sample knitting for her. She has a sock pattern that's coming out soon, and I don't know the name of it, but I knit the sample for her in first of all, the most gorgeous color of sort of gold, and I'll put a picture in for you. And she's carrying mohair with it. And let me just tell you, the fabric was amazing. They definitely felt like luxuries. So let's talk about that for a second. I totally get the idea of carrying mohair with everything, and it does make things nice and soft and super lovely, and it feels very luxurious. And especially right now with these kind of stay-at-home orders, and the fact that it's winter, and the fact that those have been going on for a long time, and the political situation, and so many other things are going on, it feels nice to knit with something super soft. And when you're done, it feels like a hug. It is a rather expensive prospect. It basically adds, even a one skein project, it basically adds $30 more, right? Or $15 more to your project to carry mohair. So if you're going to knit a hat and you carry a mohair with it too, it adds to that cost if you're going to knit a pair of socks too. That being said, those socks were so nice. And they knit up pretty quick because you're carrying a fingering weight and a mohair together. You can use a larger needle size, so they knit up pretty quick. They felt super soft in my hand. The fabric was beautiful. And the other thing is, honestly, I don't know that I would wear them in shoes or boots. I might, but probably not. But honestly, just wearing them like around your house or inside your slippers or just to bed, why shouldn't you do something for your feet? They hold you up all day, the whole body. They move you from A to B. They do all these fantastic things for you. So indeed, why wouldn't you? So if you have an extra skein of mohair around, or just some, you only need, she had knit one sock, I knit the other. There still was quite a bit left over. I didn't weigh it, but I shipped it back to her, so I don't know what the amount of yarn was, but it looked like maybe perhaps half. So if you have knit yourself a hat or something like that and you want you have a little bit left over, why not knit them in socks? So be watching for Summerly Knits. She is going to have a new pattern out, and it's going to be really cute. So make sure you put that on your to-do list too. And that's all I have for you today. So thanks very much for spending some time with me today. And I hope to have some more fun knitting for you next time. What are you guys working on? I'll talk to you soon.